On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse, we talk with an abuse survivor named Cristina. And Cristina was married to a destabilizing abuser. It's a story of blame shifting, intimidation, hope, and survival. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and with me today we have Cristina. How are you?
I'm doing well, Brandon. How about yourself?
I am doing well, and thank you so much for being here with us today. And if you want to be a guest like Cristina is today, go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com, click on the guest form button, fill it out, and press the submit button. Also, we have a support group at our website at narcissistapocalypse.com, and we have Zoom meetings every Wednesday night, Thursday afternoons, and Saturday nights. And we have forum boards for you to post on to get the validation you need from survivors just like you. And that is at narcissistapocalypse.com. And you can also sign up to our new newsletter at narcissistapocalypse.com and get a free workbook for every new survivor story we put out. And today we do have a content warning as we do discuss physical abuse and life threats in this episode. And today we are going to hear Cristina's story. And Cristina was married, hoping to find that final piece of stability in her life. And she thought she had it, but unfortunately for her, this person, this abuser, was quite the opposite. All he did was create instability. So once you pulled off that fancy covering that this abuser had, there was nothing stable about this person. There was nothing at all stable about this person. So at this point, Cristina is doing her best to understand him and fix things. But that's just impossible when you're dealing with someone who is blaming you for the instability. So I know Cristina's story will validate many of you today, many of your experiences today. And now I'm going to get out of my way and your way. Cristina, the floor is now yours.
Okay, so I will start with kind of my beginning and take you through this journey that is, still going on today and probably may for a while. But I'm Cristina. I grew up the eldest of three sisters in a smaller city. My parents were in academia. And from the majority of my childhood, I recall it being, good. There were moments that I'm sure have impacted me moving forward. So my father passed away when I was 9 years old. At the time, my sisters were 6 and 4. And right away, I became more than a daughter. I became a partner of sorts to my mother. She didn't ask a lot of me, but I was in tune with her. We were very close from an early age. And I saw her needs for help, and I did, any chance I took. And from that, it kind of morphed into, really being that person my mom confided in, asked my opinion. And so that was young to kind of start filling that role. And my mom and I are still close today, so I'm grateful for it. But it was definitely a life altering moment. One of the things I feel a lot of times when I listen to survivor stories is a sense of goodness in these survivors, really, really good people. And I have to say, at that time, growing up, as I approached high school, as I was in high school, I didn't feel like the best person. I reacted to things when, it was stressful. I, took out some of my resentment of being put in this position by my father's death on my little sisters. So my perception of self was already that, like, you can be a little mean sometimes, or you could be a little emotional sometimes. So as you'll see later with meeting my ex, that kind of came into play. And looking back, I was a normal girl. I liked to party. I had a lot of friends who I still have today, but my early relationships, I definitely held on too long. It was always a problem for me to let go, even when things are well past their expiration dates.
So at this point here, when you're younger, my assumption here is that you did not go to therapy. You were not sent to therapy when you were younger to deal with any issues from like the grief standpoint of what you were dealing with. And it manifested in other ways. You have this parentified version of you at this point of your life. How do you feel about your self worth during this time? And well, I guess, who were you? Because you kind of grew up a little bit faster than other kids would. And what are you looking for in the world? Like, what's your mom telling you you should be or what you should do? Is that part of the equation? Or do you have kind of little guidance because your mom's needing help and guidance in a way? So, are you guiding yourself a lot in this time?
Yeah, I would say my mom was quite busy, obviously, a single mom of 3 girls under 10, and obviously raising us through high school and college. But I would say it was the typical kind of 90s skewed look on what females could do. I feel today it was a wrong way to look at the world, in that the message was women could do anything. They could be president, they could be married with kids, they could do it all. And so I think the resounding like call of that time was like, women do it all, but you have to work really hard to get there. And so I did. I worked really hard in school, and my work ethic has continued to the present day. And so it is something that I always, kind of look back to, and I survived these things. Why can't I survive this thing too?
So that's your identity is I'm a survivor.
I would say so. I would say I felt really strong. I felt brave in the face of all of this. But of course, there's always a loneliness that comes with a unique childhood experience. So I think that always sat deep within me, you know? So my first serious relationship started when I was in high school, and he was a lovely boy. And he actually continued to be my boyfriend from sophomore year of high school straight through junior year of college. We went to different colleges, but we maintained, our relationship long distance. And he really was truly my best friend and my first love. And the dynamics in that relationship, I would say, were very much loving, except for when I would act up a little bit. And I would say this happened towards the end of our relationship. Towards the end of our relationship, I started getting antsy. I was in college. I wanted to experience the world. I went to study abroad, and there, I pulled away from my boyfriend. And when I came back, yet I couldn't still break up with him. There was something tying me together with him, and it was from my end. Like I knew I needed to. I knew I wanted to do other things, go other places, but yet it was really hard for me to do it. So I did cheat ultimately in that relationship. I had like a little hookup when I was studying abroad. When he came back, he found out, and I felt guilt. I felt so much guilt, but at the same time, the relationship was forced over. And that sounds awful, but that's how hard it was for me to let go. And then my next 2 long-term relationships were that long-term. They were years long. And both of those kind of ended by holding on too long and stretching things out and not really sharing my feelings. So that carried forward with me, this kind of like, ooh, I've messed up in the past. And, so maybe I'm not a great partner. Looking back now, I can see that I was a kid, right? All of these things I perceived as like bad behavior in quotation marks were me being a kid and trying to grow up and figure out the world, but also remembering that those tendencies to just hang on too long, that would impact me in this relationship we're going to talk about.
So eventually you do meet the person that we're about to talk about, but what was your life like right before you met this person?
My life was exciting and hectic right before I met my ex. I had moved after college to a big city. I was doing really exciting work in a creative field. I was away from my house for months on end, maybe 3 months here, 4 months here, doing a job, working really hard, being consumed by the work, almost shutting out the outside world. And then I would come back to my normal life, and it would be kind of a letdown. It was like you had to like reacclimate into the normal world. And I did this so many times to the point where I was like, I really want to find a way to stop this. I'm approaching now my 30s. I need to slow it down, or I'm just going to live like this the rest of my life. And while it was exciting early 20s, by the end of the 20s, I am tired. So at the same time, my roommate and best friend, we were living together, and she met a man. And she too was ready to start that stage of her life. So I was asked to move out, not in a nasty way, but in a normal life changing way. And it was at that point where I really started to feel almost desperate. Desperate. I wanted to share a house too. I wanted to get a dog with somebody. I wanted to honestly just have a partner. And I'm not talking take somebody to take care of me, just somebody to share the burden of what life can be like. You know what I mean? So I start online dating. And when I did, it was kind of the early ish stages of online dating. Like there was no Tinder or Bumble yet. So I am early stages online dating, a little embarrassed to be honestly. In my 20s, I had met everybody I dated at work. And like I said, those jobs were really intense. And when you come back to normal life, you realize that maybe the chemistry between you and the person was just because of the work. And so in civilian life, in quotation marks, I found myself really wanting a partner. And I meet my ex online. And I have to say, I had never felt kind of this sort of excitement just over text and emails. I It was early in online dating, and so I had never really communicated with somebody right off the bat like this in just writing. And I mean, from just his quick wit and just the banter we already were able to kind of naturally fall into, I was hooked. Like I was hooked before we even met. But it wasn't long after, the emailing. We had a phone call, it lasted over an hour. It was so exciting to meet somebody whose brain jives with yours in this way. So when I finally did go out on that first date with him, I like already wanted him to be my man, and I had not met him. And when I showed up to the date, I wasn't automatically attracted to him. He was handsome, and he was tall, and physically there wasn't that spark for me right away. But I have to say, by the end of dinner, that man was looking like Brad Pitt to me. We had such a good time. The conversation flowed so easily. He asked me a lot of questions, and our banter really was the same in person, which was fun. And he was a gentleman afterwards. He paid for a beautiful dinner at an expensive restaurant and did not try to extend the evening. And, you know, I was hooked. I was hooked right then and there.
So, before we continue with the relationship and how it progressed from here, eventually you do meet his family. So, let's discuss his family right here and where this person came from and where they slotted in the family, how it looked, and how is this person formed?
Yeah. So my ex was raised quite differently than me. And I would say probably very differently from most people. He grew up a very privileged expat life. He lived all over Asia, Europe. I'm talking housekeepers, drivers, cooks, walled compounds. I mean, it couldn't be further than my upbringing. And I think with that came very surface level pomp and circumstance and detached parents, honestly. These are the kind of people that, like, at the time required their children to wear blazers and slacks on airplanes. This is the kind of environment he's in. And from his retelling, there was a lot of pressure and a lot of unfairness. It was just a series of, like, family letdowns that I was like, this is bad. I'm sorry for you. Listen, you were very privileged, but I understand, like, sibling dynamics. And your parents did seem quite critical, yet they were detached. So it was very different, but I also was very drawn to that difference. It was cool and worldly, and he went to very prestigious colleges, and he had a lot of what I wished I could have had, except for the parents and whole sister drama. But it seemed like an amazing way to grow up to me. So when we first started dating, my ex told me his dad was quite sick. He was in hospice, and it was really, a trying time for him. I gave him a lot of empathy during this time. So soon after we met, a month after we met, he is asking me to go meet his father, just because he knows how important I already am and am going to be in his life. He didn't know how much longer his dad had. And so here I go to meet his family under these circumstances. But to me, I was like, whoa, this is awesome. Like, he wants me to meet his father. I am already so hooked right now. And this just kind of sealed the deal for me.
So, right here, based upon how you grew up, your father passing away, a lot of instability in a way growing up, or the feeling of instability, and you yourself are trying to get stability in your life, and you're doing a good job on your own. You're an independent, killing it out there, doing great. You've created your own stability, but you feel that to complete this thing, you need another person in your life for that full stable thing to be there. Now here's this person, the new Brad Pitt of your world, and has a dad passing away. You meet this person early on. It creates this really quick false sense of intimacy in that way. It's something you both now have in common and can bond you. But this person, even though they had neglect growing up, the rest of that childhood was the model of stability. And this person is taking you out to a fancy dinner and all of these things. And this person is modeling stability for you. And unconsciously here, it's showing you kind of what you want. And then there's the part with your dad growing up, and now he's going through it too. It really seals the deal here that this is like the perfect person. You understand each other, you get along in every sort of way, and you're not going to be able to see anything going forward because for you right here, this is it.
It was it. And that was so well articulated, Brandon. I was hooked. And I would say I wanted things to move as quickly as they did at that point, or I thought I did. Because, like you said, I really wanted to get to that full circle stability point in my life. So I would say in 6 months, we moved in together. We got a nice little cottage house. It was like idyllic. But I would say maybe not even a month later, the mask dropped for the first time. So my mother is coming to visit me for the first time since my ex and I had met. I have this cute house. I have this perfect boyfriend. I am stoked. She comes and stays with us, and we have such a good time. He is as charming to her as he's been to me. We laugh. I hadn't seen my mom laugh like that in a long time. It was fun, and I was on top of the world. But on my mom's final night, we were almost out the door for dinner. We were giddy. It was her last night. We had such a great time. We were going to our favorite Mexican restaurant. We were giddy. And I say that really because it was this first like high of joy that was so quickly turned into something really dark. So we're standing outside, we're about to leave, and my ex comes home and he kind of rushes past us, not making eye contact, throws open the door to the house, and the dry cleaning he's holding in his hand gets chucked against the wall. I'm not talking like, I'm home, toss my dry cleaning on the table. No, this was very much a statement, and my heart sank. I was like, what is going on here? My mom and I look at one another, and the look of horror on her face, so I'm like, oh, mom, just wait 1 second. I'm sure there's something going on. Let me run inside and talk to him. And when I get in, it's just coldness. And, you know, I said, what's wrong? What's wrong? It was the start of my begging to understand what's wrong. What's wrong? Did something happen at work? Is something happen with your family? And the response was, no, you said she was leaving yesterday and she's still here today. And I don't want lying in this relationship. And I was confused. I said, well, I'm pretty sure I told you, but if I didn't, I'm really sorry. I can see how you might have been surprised. And he's like, yeah. So basically, he just responded, well, yeah, let's not have this happen. Go enjoy your dinner. And then he didn't say goodbye to my mom before she left. And somehow I was able to reason this away. He had just at that point lost his father. Maybe my mother being in town and our close relationship has triggered something. I made up every story to get around this situation that I knew was very weird and wrong. And years later, my mom told me that on the airplane home, she actually cried. She knew this wasn't right. This was weird. And it still makes me feel bad today. But of course, I put my mom through much more later. So I still feel bad about it all. So from this point, things with my ex were marked by his depressive stages. And of course, there was so much fun in between those. But along with that now came some moments of instability, like the dry cleaning incident with my mom. We had talked about going over the weekend to buy some plants to kind of, continue to make our new place a home. And I was excited, so that Saturday morning, you ready? What time do you want to go? Here are some ideas of what nurseries we could go to. And he looked at me like disgusted, you always want to keep working. Can't you ever rest? You go to work all week and work long hours, and now you want to work on the weekends. This is not the life I signed up for. And not the life I signed up for was a popular refrain for many years. And I was hurt and shocked, but again said, well, he likes to relax, and his relaxation is in a different way than mine. And, we'll find other things to do together. But we started not doing things together, as much as we did. And, I could tell the grind of daily grown up life was hard for my ex to accept. Maybe that's because of his upbringing. I would say probably. The life skills weren't there as much as many others at that age. At that time, too, his like nuclear family broke up. And there was a big fight around the time of his father's death. And now he's not talking to his mother. He's not talking to his sister. And this bitterness starts to take hold in him. This focus, a hyper focus on the wrongs his mother and sister did. So his father dies. He is hyper focused that he just can't, like, he'll get wound up and ruminate and talk about it and talk about it. So now I'm trying to like make the house he wants and pull him out of something or aid him through this dark night of his soul. I mean, it was a lot to take on. And I didn't really quite know that would be the expectation. And I also didn't know that this is how he requires love to be. But maybe that's okay. Maybe he'll get out of this in a few months and then he'll do that for me when I have something happen in my life. So I kind of always thought the reciprocity would happen at some point. So after this, we're living together in our cute little cottage. Things are starting to get a little up and down. And my job, even though it was becoming a little more stable, even though I had found this man with a stable career, I knew I needed to make like a bigger change in my professional life. And so I got a great opportunity to kind of take what I did and put it into a more stable kind of corporate environment. But that would require us to move to a different city. And man, he was excited. He was like, let's go, let's go. I really am ready for a change. You know, he was underperforming at his job, really underperforming. And to me, the explanation for his underperformance was this boss who had it out for him. Also a common theme we'll come back to. But he was like, yeah, let's go. Let's make a change. I'll find a job when we get there. And so eager that he quit his job 2 weeks before I gave my notice. So he was on board. And so we did it. We said we would move and we started putting that into motion. And the morning before we were to leave, the moving truck was coming. He got down on one knee at a dog park at 7 a.m. We did get that dog, at the dog park at 7 a.m. And, it was funny. I can tell the story in a funny way, but I also feel the dread I felt. I knew it probably wasn't a good idea. So, we're leaving the house and he's lint brushing a sweater. I'm like, what are you doing? We're going to a dog park. And so it was quite a surprise. And I said, yes, it was exciting. The ring was beautiful. And, we're moving tomorrow. Well, this makes sense. It makes sense. And so I said yes. And he told me after, I asked your mother for permission. And I thought that was really nice, sort of. It felt performative. I can't explain it, Brandon. It felt performative in a way. And then, of course, when I did talk to my mom, I could tell she was like a little weird. She was uncertain but basically put it to me and said, you're going to make your own decisions. I want you to see what you want. I don't know the full picture. And so I'm happy for you. I mean, it was an odd conversation riddled with a lot of things unsaid that were very loud. So we moved to our new city, and immediately upon arrival, this isn't what he expected. And no positivity there. Not like, this isn't what I expected, but let's explore. We're driving in at 10 o'clock at night and really can't see anything. And there's much more to the city than where we chose our house. There was never like a way to look at the situation being hard and then to imagine a brighter scenario after that, which I'm very good at. I wake up with hope in the morning, but this wasn't it. This was, we made a mistake, and the we is really you, because you got us here for your job. And those first 2 years were rough. He did not have work. He did not have work. And he did not make a huge effort to find work. And when he got options for possible jobs, they were beneath what he did in his big city career. So they were really tough times, and kind of picking at me started to get a little worse. The resentment and jealousy of my career, there was never any excitement for any opportunities. I had to travel, and really, he started blaming me for his unemployment and the fact that he threw his career away, is how he expressed it. So obviously, I feel guilt. I'm like, well, we did move here for my job. He isn't working. Maybe there aren't any jobs like he's saying there aren't. And so to kind of mitigate that guilt in me, the fawning started even more, the catering to his emotions, his outburst about his mother and sister still consumed him. And he started kind of acting aggressive in other ways with other people. He was prone to road rage and would follow people for miles, miles. And one time the police were called on him when he was following somebody, and he was pulled over, and in his, ways, he was able to talk out of it. He said, "No, I wasn't. I wasn't doing it." And the officer believed him, but it was scary. And I was scared for those people, honestly. That's when I started kind of figuring like this is not right. And, this aggression is more now than I've seen in just verbal aggression, if you get what I'm saying. Like to follow somebody for miles is intense. And it's around this time too where we get into our first big fight where he is punching walls, packing bags, and saying, "We are done." And man, the panic in me, my heart is racing. He is throwing things into garbage bags. I've never seen a hole punched. And I was panicking. He's going to leave me here. We moved here together. We got engaged. This dream is crashing down. I am begging, begging, begging. And he came back that night. He just drove around and came back and was like, "We need to work on some things." And it was always either it started maybe as a we, but then these fights became, "You need to work on these things." I wouldn't have done any of that if you were working on these things, working on being a better partner, working on not nagging me about any luck today. It was just starting to become like really the blame game for the problems, the serious problems in his life. So it's important to say about this first big fight that I was also kind of good at rewriting the history of these moments. They were awful, but I learned to kind of retell them with him and then even add humor to when I told them to friends because my mother actually, but you know, because they were so scary and weird to me, I would add humor. "Oh, that big fight, it was so crazy." And you stormed back in because you forgot your calculator. And we would laugh. "Why would you need your calculator? This thing was like a relic from the 80s with like solar power." It was just bizarre, weird things would happen in these really scary outbursts that then I would kind of hook onto the humor and be able to kind of try to laugh with him about it because he wasn't apologizing. Obviously, those times were a little few and far between, but it was a coping mechanism of mine that I could find something harmless and silly in the event and kind of make that the punchline of the story instead of the punchline being punching the wall. So I'm telling you, he's not looking for jobs. He's sitting and smoking pot all day. We're on a one income salary now. I am really getting suspicious of his days and suspicious of his like he didn't see the urgency in finding a job. And this started to really like worry me. And so eventually he started temping, and temping was way too low for what he deserved to be in his career, the place he should be in his career. And so I don't know, I got a weird feeling that he wasn't going. Now he's getting dressed in his business attire with me in the morning. We are leaving the house at the same time in our separate cars. And so, for all intents and purposes, why would I think that? But I did. I had a sneaking suspicion. And So one day I did leave at the same time as him, but drive around the corner and kind of wait. I wanted to wait and see if his car came back home. And not like 2 minutes later, he might have circled the block. He was back home. And, I knew he wasn't telling the truth.
If you could encapsulate how you were feeling and your mindset, like who are you at that moment? Because you're not the same person you were at the beginning of the relationship already. So, what is the difference between that first person and now this person?
So the me now is, really happy at work and doing well. But the me at home is feeling like the sky is falling. I was on edge all the time. I was on edge all the time. I didn't like my suspicious nature. I didn't have a suspicious nature before. I'd never checked, a boyfriend's email or phone. I didn't check his ever, honestly, but I felt that things were wrong. I started feeling really, really nervous to come home from work, that kind of dread of like, what am I going to walk into? And my mornings started not containing that like hope they always had. And this makes me sad because that's like one thing that you like need, And my mornings started to be like, who am I going to turn over and see? But who is it going to be today? And what is he going to say? And, this is where there was a lot of actually articulating on his point that he didn't want this life. I had the subtext, I had trapped him into this. And that was really hard to hear. It was really hard to hear because he did say he wanted this life, and I wanted it too. And now I was being blamed for his misery in the life we created, or in his mind, I created for us. And that was fucking awful. But I did what any really smart person does in this situation and decided a baby should be welcomed into this world with me and him. And that biological clock was ticking. And I told myself, even if it doesn't work out, I will still have my baby forever. So this is crazy, so I'm in the hospital, in the delivery room, and of course my ex gets his first interview. Now, it's again, I made it comedy, and then who actually waits to the last minute to get a job, to the minute you need one because you have a baby coming into this world. But of course, I'm like, get out of here, like go take that interview. I'll be fine giving birth by myself to my first child. And I did. And she came and she was lovely. And, he stayed that first night in the hospital with me. But this is kind of my first glimpse of how he was going to be as a parent and how our differences were going to play out. So, baby's crying. Of course, she's a newborn. You have to feed her every like 2 hours. And he is like, you need to let her cry it out. Babies need to cry it out, that they need to be taught that they can't just like cry and be picked up. And I was like, yeah, maybe when they're 6 months, but like this is a newborn in the hospital. And he was so cold, so dismissive, so to the point where I'm like, I just had this baby and I have to argue with you on this. But I wasn't one to really back down on matters of our children, even then. So I buzzed that nurse right in and had her explain to him that this does not happen when a baby's like 10 hours old. So this was going to be something that creeped up. And again, I'm like, the deep depths of like knowing Brandon were there the whole time, and that's the hardest part I think about these relationships is like the depth of knowing is there and you feel it, but you fight so hard to ignore it. And I did that night too. And, and then babies weren't his thing. I don't think until they started interacting with him like that he could really grasp what this relationship could be like. And I think his only way of trying to do that was telling me that I was wrong for doing things the way I was doing them. He was jealous too, so I struggled really hard to breastfeed. Doctors, nurses are coming in every 10 minutes, like, how's that going? And I wanted to do it and tried and tried. And I had lactation consultants, and, there was no support. It was like, you shouldn't be breastfeeding. You should be bottle feeding because I want to help. I want to be involved in this. And I said to my ex, there's a lot of other things that need to be done with the baby. You could do a lot of other things to help. But no, he wanted the one thing that only I could do. But then other than that, like, it was a lot of detachment from the situation, a lot of playing video games, a lot of just not supporting me, and beyond that, antagonizing me. All his little problems. Now he had a job to complain about. He's still estranged from his mom and sister. He's still chasing people in cars. Like, so those are the things I start having to focus on again. Those are like those big emotional moments that like change the whole house. And when I should have been focusing on my babies, enjoying that limited time I had off of work, I was really consumed by managing him. It was hard to look back on. No. So eventually we have a second daughter. We moved to a bigger house. Again, anytime I move, it's like a reset in my mind, a reset he's articulated. Like, things are going to be better once we get more space and are in a better neighborhood, and later moving to other cities again. And so we moved to a new house. We have another baby, and she has some very serious health issues. And because his detachment from the baby stage was happening again, he did not support or see the seriousness of this. She couldn't breathe and was aspirating food. Like, these are like two things you really need to survive. And I was going to doctor after doctor with her. And, a week after she was born, he went to Vegas on a work trip. And this trip, there was many drunk calls. I'm like with a baby all night. He calls me from there and says his best friend that he decided to fly in to hang out with during his off hours has agreed to have a threesome with me. And I am like, this is crazy. A, why are you in Vegas? B, or why are you calling me about sexual conversations we've never had? And C, like, I am scared. This baby is not doing well. But that was on me. That care was on me. And eventually she had a feeding tube and then surgery at 8 weeks. This was not easy. And I was alone. And even with another toddler, and in his retelling, he's taking the toddler out and about. And I don't recall it that way. I felt like I had them all the time. And I did. And at that point, my mother had come out to stay for a month. Now, I'm scared of this idea, but she comes out for a month because the child's immune system was not strong enough to be sent to daycare. And my mom came out, and he was cold. She was walking on eggshells. I was walking on eggshells because I already had, but now even more so concerned of my mother. And the time, and she did this for us, like, we needed her. His mother is not in the picture. She did this. And at the end, he just lost it on her and was like, you and your family hate men. You didn't grow up with men, and now you hate them. And your mother won't make eye contact with me. She only wants to talk to you. And I knew my mother. I knew why she never remarried again. She was painfully shy, and she didn't hate men. She was scared of him, and the issues with my mom and sisters got worse and worse. And he never liked them again, and tried his best to poison me, and tried his best to keep me separated. But I still talk to my mom every day. I always did. And I didn't let that go, but I also didn't, I stopped talking to her while I was home. It was going to be in car rides now.
So your children are born, and as they get older, the control over them begins. So tell us about this.
So it was heartbreaking. One time he took away toys that my family had gotten my older daughter. It was like plastic play purse that had like plastic keys and a plastic credit card and maybe a plastic lipstick. I don't remember. This thing lit up and played music. Like it was a kid's toy. And he said, I don't want any of my children to be playing with credit cards. That is totally inappropriate. They shouldn't have makeup. This is teaching them that they're going to be able to wear makeup. And he took it. Some arguments were not worth it for me to fight. I couldn't have the news on in the house when the girls were there, even when they were like 6 months old. He said it wasn't healthy for them. And here I really like the news and staying up to date on things. So that was a loss for me. And I went along with it. The sleep training was ugly, as you can imagine. The idea of desserts, and a lot of first time parents get crazy about sugar, and I get it. I did have opinions too. I didn't want to overdo it, but he really didn't want to have it at all. And so any little taste of ice cream or something at daycare, would cause problems. And it was my fault. I was permissive. And at this time, I was a product of my family and didn't have structure and didn't have a parent and didn't grow up with manners and all of these things that he was so proud of now of his upbringing. And, I hated being home. I hated being home with him because either I would still do everything and watch him in a room with door closed by himself, or he was controlling and critical or cold or mean. And so I spent most of the girls' childhood like wandering around Target, honestly, in the mall, like just walking around a store, just nowhere else to go. It was hot out. I mean, this is what I remember of the girls being babies.
So right here, there's this control that is going on in all ways with him. Like he just really needs to have control and a lot of control on this parenting aspect of things. Are you feeling like you're a bad parent? Is this contributing to anything like that? And the way he's doing things, if so, do you believe it? And are you feeling worse about yourself now that because he wants to be right, you know, and he wants you to know that you're wrong in every manner, and he's using these things that technically he really wasn't proud of with his earlier childhood at all, things he resented in a way. And now it's his only card of now having some sort of control that he knows better because he's from this world over here. You're never grew up in that. So this is his only card that he can play here in the non-physical sense of things, as far as like a mind game goes, where there could be a kernel of truth of like, yes, we do have these two differences, so he can twist that. So are you believing these things that are going on here? And what is your mental state at this point as far as coping?
I think what you said was so right in that, like, I could find a kernel of truth in what he said. And there were ways that my family raised children. Now my sister has kids that I was like, yeah, I don't really want that either. And so also remember that I, in a way, not envied his upbringing, but I like romanticized it. And so I did think maybe he's right. But then there would be little things, obviously, not little things that would really make me question. And this is around the time I started getting called white trash. And he would say other people don't live like this with clutter. And I had been to other people's houses, and maybe they didn't live like this with clutter. But you know what? I know that when somebody comes over to my house, I'm throwing things in closets and drawers. Like, I knew that the reality wasn't what he was saying, but I also was nervous that it could be true. And I also was always on eggshells. So all I wanted to do was keep the peace. I wanted to have normal days. I did not want him waking up saying he didn't sign up for this life. I did not want him smoking weed all day, complaining about his job in the way of, you got me here. So I was sad. I was sad, but I also was like, I gotta fix this, and that's when I started kind of going to therapy. And I've heard it many a time on your show, and from experience, therapy can be a good thing, but in these kind of situations, it can really also be tough, because at that point, the therapist was like, you need to fight for this. Like, here are things you can do. I'm telling her a certain version of the story, and I'm like, how can I fix this on my end? you know? So I thought if I could fix it, I would. And then also around this time, I guess I started playing games with myself. Once the girls are in elementary school, maybe then I'll leave. Maybe then I really still need him. I really need him. I need him no matter what he does, as little as he does. I need that. I can't do this without him. And started kind of thinking, maybe I could in the future, but it was it's in the future, like we're talking like I can wait 2-3 years, but things were really bad, really escalated during that time. The punching of the walls, there was a suicide threat. And a lot of this, people say they don't remember what it's over. It's these little fights. I remember one of them, what it was over. Actually, two of them, and they were because he had this pot problem that really like affected his work, going to his job, participating in the family, doing anything but video games. I called him on it a couple times, and those were some really bad fights. And I'm talking about screaming in the house, holes are punched in hallways, in the garage, everywhere, screeching out of the driveway. I am crying, Brandon. I am crying, shaking. Please don't go. Why didn't I want him to go? He is punching the walls. He is scaring the living shit out of me. And I'm terrified and yet begging, don't do this. Don't go. Don't go. We'll figure it out. And that night, cops were called. And I was really a bit embarrassed. I told them everything was fine because, of course, he had episodes like this before. I had gone through these things. I never had the cops called. And he was gone for the majority of the night until I heard from him at 2 a.m. And I don't know if I was sleeping. It might have been like a twilight sleep, and had been crying. I mean, my face, I can't tell you how many times my face was so puffy that I would have to like put ice packs on it to be able to go anywhere. And he calls and he says, I'm on the way to kill my boss. And I'm like, no, you're not. But I hear him in the car and he's on the way. And I'm like, what are you doing? Well, first I said, no, you're not. And he seriously was like, I am. And I'm going there, and enough is enough. I have nothing to lose at this point. Nothing. I hate my job. I hate my life. I have no family. I'm done. I'm going and killing him. And I'm like, please turn around. Please turn around. You can't do this. It's not worth like messing with this. And, he hung up a few times. I called back, and I'm laying there terrified. This man has snapped. It is a snappage situation, and I'm scared. Is he coming home? And he came home at daybreak and was like, I think we should go to therapy. He never went, obviously, to go kill his boss. He went into work on Monday. But I couldn't believe the instance, and I can't believe I stayed after that. And years later, he denied it ever happening in therapy.
And he's creating a huge fear. He's creating not just an instability, because instability was already there, but it's creating the persona of this person that they can do anything at any time. They can snap in any sort of way. And there's a fear of not wanting that person, because that's an escalation there, because that person has no control over what they're doing at this point. And that type of person is dangerous. So there's another kind of fear that is going on here where now I'm in this relationship. I'm already used to all of these other minds that are big, but now there's this one that could be even bigger. And not just your life, someone else's life, his life. Someone who says that they have nothing to live for anymore can be capable of doing anything, really. So you just have so much going on here. And eventually you decide to move. So what happens from here?
At this time, he's very much struggling at work. And this would be the story of every job. He hates his boss hates him. They're out to get him. That's a huge part of why he hates his life, why it was my fault that we moved here. So I'm like, well, find another job. I'll go anywhere with you. I think you will be a lot happier. Let's do it. And so he looks high and low and gets a job in now a desired big city with a desired high caliber job that's fitting for him. And so we move far back across the country. And he starts this new job. And my job let me go remote, but I'm now working all the time too. And the place that we moved to was, kind of like a nanny world, an au pair world. It was expensive for childcare. So luckily, I'm working from home. I can kind of buffer that cost. But he started like, you said you would support me because this is such a great opportunity. You told me you were going to hold me up and kind of fill in the gaps so that I could really succeed here. I moved there for your job. I failed for so long. My career took a hit because of your job. You said it was my turn. I don't know. I think that's a stretch in that, like, I articulated it like it's your turn, but he believed it. And when I started having to travel for work, obviously, go back to the mothership every once in a while, he would lose it. He would lose it. And, he was always sick during those times and couldn't take care of the girls. He always had huge, huge meetings all of a sudden come up. And so while I was trying to get my job done in my former city, he is calling, harassing me, making me feel so guilty. And, I did look for other work, but ultimately I knew that I had it good with my job and that he didn't quite understand the complexities of having children in this area. And that, like, it would make things very, very hard to have both of us going into a city every day. And like I said, it's like always in my mind a new start. And we love those new starts, like looking for a house together. Again, we're on the same page of, like, when we looked at things, we liked the same things, and I trusted his eye. And so he actually went and bought the house before I even saw it. And there was so much excitement, new things, new places, new memories to be made. Forget all of that. Let's just, like, enjoy life. Finally, you won't hate your job. You know, it'll be great. But there was always something I had to, like, earn back trust for in those times. It was earning back trust in that I now have lied about saying I would support him. I have lied, I have let him down, and you're going to have to build back that trust. And there were a lot of those now that he has identified something that I have done so wrong to him. And it's going to take a while now for me to build up that trust. And in that time, we're going to have some issues. I'm going to react. You're going to trigger me because I don't trust you. And so any reactions I have are your fault. When he would break something, name call, punch a wall, give me the silent treatment, pretend he's sick and stay in bed all week. Those were all because of me. He did not ever apologize, and I worked that much harder. It was tough.
So things here are tough. And then you get the news that your sister has cancer. So what happens from here?
So it was awful for all of us to hear. It really, really was a bomb on our family. And he was awesome. He wanted to make things easier. And Christina, get on a plane right now. Like, go to that first appointment with your sister at the oncologist. I got you. I got us. You know, what does she need? He's doing some researching. He's talking to her husband. You know, he is becoming, you know, a hero in this situation. And we're all starting to be like, whoa, like, you know, he even like made progress with my mom and my sisters. And we're like, this is, you know, when push comes to shove, maybe he really will help, you know. And so it was time for her staging appointment. So you get cancer, you identify that you have it, what kind, and then they do all of the scannings for the staging. And so we coincidentally were going back to my hometown for my niece's birthday, and her staging appointment was going to be during that time. And so it was something that she really wanted me to go to with my mom, and I really wanted to go too. And so we all went to my mother's house to stay, and he, you know, continued his hero behavior. I'll help set up for my niece's party. You know, I'm gonna do whatever I can. But the day of this appointment, we woke up and he was different. And all of a sudden, he's walking around my mother's house and saying, "It is not safe for our children to be in this house. They need to be taken out of here. I think they should go home with me," because he was leaving a little earlier. And I'm like, "What are you talking about? They've been here a million times now." "Well, these bookshelves aren't attached to the walls. It smells like cat litter, which I think could be bad for their lungs because they have asthma. You know, they're eating all sorts of crap here." I mean, just everything. And I'm explaining, what? No, no, look at, I mean, they're always supervised. They're going to be at my sister's a lot. I don't know. I've never heard that about cat litter. Have you ever looked it up? I'm trying. But it's escalating, and he's just getting more mad and putting his foot down. No, they need to leave. They need to leave. So he's arguing with us, or he's arguing with me. I'm trying to rationalize with him, but I see there's no way through. This is like dark eyes. Like, I've made my decision. Like, you are hurting our children. I need to save them from you and your family. And I'm like, they're not going anywhere. They are going to their cousin's birthday tomorrow. You're not taking them anywhere. And I'm like, "You got to stop. We have this big appointment. Like, I need my family to not be experiencing this. I can't experience this right now. Like, this is very important." And he's like, "You are not putting your family first. You are not putting your children first. And I'm really rethinking these things." I mean, he broke up with me all the time. This one was dramatic. And to the point where he's like, "I'm going to the airport." And we're like, "But your flight is not now." And like, what? I'm going. And he takes his clothes from a shared suitcase and is holding them. And I'm talking like 2 pairs of boxers. Like, it was so weird. And he's leaving, and he's so nasty to my mom, so nasty to me. And we're like, "Do you want a bag, a backpack?" And he's like, "No." And he just leaves. And that's it. We don't hear from him. Okay, later on the day, we go to my sister's staging appointment, and she's diagnosed with stage 4 incurable cancer. It is, I want to say now to the audience, she has been cancer free for many years now. The treatments get better, and we're so grateful that she is so healthy right now. It will come back at stage 4, you know, and the reality was told to us by that oncologist, you know, like, this is very serious. And so that was the day, made the meltdown in a really, really very bad time. I don't know. I let these things go. I think still, you know, I was doing like, well, once they're in kindergarten, once, you know, I still kind of thought maybe that. I don't know. I was also now just had moved to a different city. Like, can I really like bounce from there? Like, I'm going to damage, you know, moving then kind of complicated things in terms of being able to think about leaving, because now I'm going to put my girls in a situation where they have to make all new friends. And, you know, so the weight, it becomes heavier in my mind to leave. But we move again. And we move actually to my hometown. And I should say that because this is somebody who hates my family, okay? But at this point has kind of convinced himself that we can get this giant house. We can get a giant, gorgeous house for less than we're paying here. It's the pandemic. We're working from home. This is the end of the pandemic. He's like, his boss is like, "You can keep working remote." And so we buy this beautiful house, but in my hometown. I let him tell me it's good. I let him tell me that, like, we're actually here to help your family if they need it. And so we move again. And so during this time, my dog that I got as part of my stability push years ago before we moved from the place we met gets sick and passes. And I'm really sad. And I want another dog. I've always had dogs. It's my companion. I love walking. I love making myself have to go to walk. And so he was really on the fence about it. He really was like, I don't think so. It's not good timing. We probably don't have the money for it. I want to wait. And I let it go for a while, but I kept it up. I really needed this dog in my life. Brandon, I didn't have much at this point. It was like hard. I really needed this for me. And so then he took me on this series of like wild goose chases to prove to him that I have thoughtfully thought about this dog and have figured every angle out so that he could feel confident with this decision. So here I'm making Excel spreadsheets with like cost of down to what toys would cost, vets, if I had to go on vacation for doggy daycare, all of it, presenting, like talking about what I would do to train the dog, finding the dog, obviously. And finally he agrees and seems excited at this point. He goes with me to get this dog. But when we get home and the responsibility is large with a puppy, and like I said, the training did fall on me, the everyday care, all of that was mine and gladly, but like with a baby, the jealousy started over a dog here of the time it's taking away from me being able to devote to him. And it builds and builds and builds, much like resentment about moving different places, to the point a year later, he says, it's me or the dog. You have to get rid of this dog or I'm out. And if I chose the dog, and I knew that dog loved me more than him, I think, and he was very pissed. He called a mediator. This was the first time like he actually like went to a lawyer to scare me. But then of course changed his mind and things moved on and the cycles of nastiness got way worse. The girls are hearing it. The girls are old enough where I'm crying in the closet. He's storming out. He's going to stay at a hotel a night. He's coming back and telling them, your mom and I are having a lot of problems. And sharing with them, mom has some issues from childhood and some emotional issues. You see how she'll cry. And I mean, they didn't believe it. But they heard it. I don't know. I don't think truly they knew, what the score was because they're walking on eggshells now too. They're old enough to know like better be chill when he's in that mood or let's ask mom to go somewhere.
So things aren't getting better. His behavior is affecting everyone in the household. So you do what a lot of people do. You go to the internet and start asking questions. So what was the first question you asked?
How do you make a bad relationship better, right? Like it's always like the first time you dip your toes into this, it's like you're looking for a fix, but also some honesty and validation. But at that point, so I started getting, there's names for this. It's not right. I started getting that in my head and it started making me a little braver in conversations and conflicts. And then the decision to leave. And, the cycles are weekly now. I am like miserable. He hates now the city, really hates that we're there with my family. All of this is going on. So the final straw that time was like, I had been away from my biggest like thing of the year, my biggest work project of the year. I'm like working weekends to get up to this like at night and I go and he is like, good luck. You're going to kill it. You're going to do great. And then the second I get there, he has like the worst flu of his life and is like so upset that I am traveling for this job. And, I say, oh my God, I feel so bad. You have to take care of the girls all on your own. Let me see if my mom can help you in some way. Maybe she could pick up the girls. And I'm like, oh, my mom said she, let her know exactly what you need. And he all of a sudden is calling me like right during this thing. Your mom's not helpful. Forget it. I'm always on my own. I'm always having to take care of myself. I guess I'm on my own. And this was also a very popular refrain. But I'm devastated. Like you are now like trying to literally take my success and my hard work away from me right now. Like I'm at, this is the biggest thing. And so I come home and he has like a week of travel for his job. And I had told him a month ago, I have dinner with my girlfriends. I don't see them now all the time. I said, and it's on a calendar and all this shit. And I come home and he's like, I'm so exhausted. I'm really not feeling well. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. He had this flu like 2 weeks before. I'm really sorry. Can I get you anything? Is there anything I can do with the girls before I go? And he's like, I just think it's really like, just really shows who you are that you're actually going, when I'm sick and I need you and da 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 da. And I was like, I'm going. And then a few days later, I asked for the divorce. He's like, really? Like, it seems like he's taking some sort of accountability. I don't want this to end. Let's try couples again because we had tried it. Let's try couples again. I'm going to go to individual therapy. It was the first time he kind of took some accountability, in terms of there are things I know I have to work on. Not like, I'm sorry, I punch walls and threaten you with divorce every month. It wasn't that, but it was like more effort than I had seen. But I don't let it get to me. I'm pissed at this point. And I also start fantasizing. I make myself like do certain things. Like I get into a thing with him and I'm like, let's dream about what your new apartment will look like and what kind of things you'll have in it. I'm a tourist. Like I like my space and I like it nice. So I keep going with it. I don't know how. And we are like a few months still in the house before I move out. But things are ugly the closer I get to that. Real ugly. Lawyers are involved. I chose one and he chose one that are very much like, let's raise the stakes. Like, you're coming for me, I'm coming back for you, which in this scenario was not the right tactic. I wish I had somebody that at that time that was more level about kind of what we're dealing with, because anything that my like aggressive lawyer did really stoked the fire. And it was so ugly and so many texts, so many awful texts from him, peppered with, we should have had this life we dreamed of. I got this new cool job and I'm in Miami right now and like, we could be here together. And I'm like, no, no, no. But there's so much. The texts are so awful and the lawyers are so awful and the holidays are coming. And it's sad being in my new apartment and he's in our beautiful house that I loved. And so I'm like getting shaky on shaky ground, right? And so I, kind of open the door with talking a little bit, linger a little longer when I'm at the house. And also kind of telling myself it's real bad when we're apart. Like almost it's really bad. It's really so awful. I'm still on eggshells because I'm waiting for that next text to come in. I'm waiting for like the next bomb to drop with these lawyers. Like he is like coming for the most like sacred things about me over text and just telling me I'm the worst. He's using the girls against me, saying I'm a bad parent, threatening to get full custody, all sorts of things that really can knock you into a frenzy. And I started thinking to myself, what's worse, being in the relationship with these ups and downs or being out of it with daily harassment? I didn't know. And he started seeing somebody and that stoked some jealousy. Now, how crazy is that? I'm so mad I let something as like stupid like jealousy to really, I'm hard on myself, but that makes me mad. But it's something I have to watch out for now, right? I always know that. So I went back and we spent Christmas together with the girls, New Year's. There were some shady little moments in the beginning when I came back, but more excitement. For some reason, I thought, and he made it seem like this break was real and he got scared and I got scared of being apart. And so I moved back in 2 months later. And oh, I should say the first time when I left, when I left the house and moved into that apartment, 2 weeks later he lost his job and we are now unemployed again for a year. So when I moved back in again, he is unemployed. Much like those 2 first years after we moved to the first city. So this could get scary and weird and bad. And I moved back in early February, and by April, the cycles were bad and even worse. And this was the first time, I would say he had kind of tried to yank things out of my hands before, like really aggressively. He kind of like pushed a big cardboard box at me. I mean, I kind of laughed in those moments like a psycho, like, like, what are you're pushing a box on me? Like, I really didn't think he was going to hurt me. And I wasn't, the punches didn't seem like violence. I mean, they seemed like him losing control. And the way he explained punching is like, sometimes you got to express your emotions. Men push them down. And sometimes, like, those things help with men process emotions. And that's just how we do. And I was like, well, I didn't grow up with any boys. Like, maybe. So actually, I didn't really think about those being like violence until like I really started digging into like the world you have helped us understand. But anyway, we decide to take this like weekend trip to our like favorite closed city. And we get this bomb hotel room. We're only going for a night and we're excited. The drive there is fun. We got the tunes on. We walk into the hotel and it's amazing. But he starts getting a little weird and cold. And he's like, I'm very hungry. I'm like, okay, there's a beautiful restaurant right here in the hotel, literally steps away. And it was like a nicer one. We were staying in a nice hotel, but like that's the point, right? And so I'm like, let's go there, have a leisurely, it's like 5 o'clock, have some wine, enjoy, and then start our night. He's like, I don't know, it's gonna take a long time. And I'm like, but there's really no one in there. And it'd be just more of a nice experience. And he's like, I'd rather walk around and see what we can find. I'm like, honestly, if you're starving, by the time we get to find some place, we probably would get some appetizers at least. And he goes to dinner and immediately is like, this is slow. This is exactly what I thought about. You don't listen to me. You don't listen. You will not listen. And I'm like, well, I'm listening and I understand you're hungry, but this was an idea and you agreed to it. And I thought it was a good idea. I'm so sorry it didn't work out. You were right, I guess. And he storms up from the table. He leaves, gone like 20 minutes, gets a granola bar, comes back, and like dinner's ruined. And I tried so hard to be like, why are we fighting over something so stupid? You're full now. People, I understand when you're hungry. My blood sugar, I'm trying. But he is like, you ruined it. You ruined the vibe. And now, I don't know if I'm going to come back from this. I don't know if I want to go out tonight. I kind of just want to go to bed. I kind of just want to go home. And I'm begging. And then, Brandon, I started having some wine. And I don't recommend this to people, but you do get that liquid courage, right? And it was wrong. Like, it's not good. It put me in a bad situation. Okay. It put me in a very bad situation in that I wasn't letting this shit go this time. I was like, you are ruining the trip, not me. You need to recover from this. So now I'm turning on, like, not like fawning, like trying to get it back, but I'm like mad, I'm like, you did this, you ruined it. And then I was a little too close to him and he was like, back up. And I'm like, oh, please listen. Like, we need to fix this. Let's go out. And he just turned around and grabbed me like this and pushed me onto the wall. It was one hand on the neck. It wasn't hard. It wasn't long. I thought I deserved it. I'm not lying. Even after all this, in that case, I thought I deserved it because I was standing quite close and wouldn't let up. And when I brought it up in therapy, months later, we were in couples again, he denied it. And I know other victims say this, that they hope they're kind of wanting their spouse or partner to put their hands on them, right? If it's only psychological and emotional abuse, right? And only the holes in the wall. It's almost like if they do that, then you'll know for sure and get out. That didn't happen to me. And it was the opposite. There's just like a little pinch of me that feels like I instigated that. I know that's bad. I know. I don't want other women to think that. I think I'm wrong, but I want to be honest here. And I know there's statistics about hands on necks, and it's not good. So please be careful. Don't be like I was. And then things were just terrible after that. It was weekly. And he didn't have this job, right? So I told him, my boss said if I move back to Mothership City, the place we moved to the first time, I would get a promotion. And, you obviously don't have any opportunities in tiny city we're in right now. Let's get back to middle city. Would that be something? And he's got no prospects. There are no prospects. He has not been interviewing, but he has a contact in that city and is given a job, a good opportunity that's very promising, and that he's interviewing a couple of times. The second interview the night before, we're talking, and he's like, you really got to build that trust again with the finances. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, listen, I'm not moving again with you if you don't put us on the same page. Like, I want to be equal. I'm not going to do it if we're not going to like talk about this and like how we're both responsible. I can't keep like making things up to you. Like we need to do this together. And he lost it. He was like, "You're gonna take my kids away from me? You're telling me you're gonna move without me?" I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm just saying we need to be realistic and better partners and sharing a financial strategy. We're back together. We're going to move somewhere together now. And he just would not come down. Black eyes, just like, you are trying to take my kids. You are trying to take my kids. Wouldn't stop saying that. So the therapist we were seeing at the time was like, you should, sometimes go to bed angry. Sometimes, you got to go to bed angry. People need to calm down. Sometimes you need the morning light to kind of figure things out. And so that next morning, I'm like, hey, you ready for your interview? Also, because we always faked, like we would just not talk about it and then things would be good. But he was not good. And he followed me around the house on a 30-minute rant, which I had never recorded anything before. But after like 10 minutes, I was like, this is wild. And it was like, you're ugly, you're a clown, you're terrible at your job, you're going to lose your job, you have no friends, your family's white trash, on and on. I never would want to touch you again. I find you disgusting, all of this. So ultimately, the conversation ended with him saying, I have on tape, people go missing all the time. People go missing all the time. And so from that point, I was like, okay, it's divorce. It's not a real divorce, but it's like, no, it is the real divorce now, because we didn't actually get divorced legally that first time. So now it's real divorce. I have a calmer lawyer. This is cray, but we have to spend the summer together. And now we all have to move together, but it doesn't end there. Right before we are leaving, we know we're leaving broken up. We know we're moving to this other city, but we need to like pack up our things, cohabitate, get out, and, prep, sign the girls up for school, da 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 da. But it is bad. It is very, very bad in that house. And it was getting worse and worse to like that final week that we were going to be there. I'm like, I think I better duck out and go stay at my mom's. Like, this is just very toxic. And there's a lot of fighting, and the girls it's cold and sad. And so I go. I say, I'm packing up to go. I'm going to go to my mom's for a week. And I see him coming out of the guest room I was staying in with like all these my papers, all the files. Like, where are you going with that? And he's like, you can't steal our paperwork. This is all the. I said, this is a school thing that I'm setting the girls up for school. I'm like, you got to give me this back. And I'm coming up the stairs, and he's coming down, and he pretends to trip and spills hot coffee on my head. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go. And ultimately, he's like, whoa, like, what are you doing? I didn't do that. You're harassing me. You're crazy. You're bipolar. And next thing you know, a cop is at my mother's door, and I'm handed an order of protection. So obviously they didn't go anywhere, and the lawyer got everything dismissed and expunged forever. There wasn't anything really on it. Like, I could be in the house, I could have the girls. It was just like, don't yell at him or don't yell at the girls. Oh my God. But this is terrifying. I have never thought he would stoop to legally getting involved with this, right? Like, that is serious. And so we move, and the harassment continues. It's just like that other time after the separation. But then my daughter requires a major surgery. He needs to be at my apartment to help me lift her, to do anything, shower, use the restroom, anything. So he's in my life, now, real close. And again, I start thinking, would it be better? What's worse? What's worse? And he's being actually very helpful right now. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. But then, we moved separately. I wouldn't move in with him. I bought my own house, but we were acting like happy family, except it was bad. It was not happy family. It was not good, but I stuck it out, kind of in this limbo relationship, committed to him, pretending, playing family, but having these own residences. I did that for a few months, and then I was strong enough to get out. And here I am.
So tell us about that process.
So this is really hard for me. It was really hard for me. It's like I said in my early relationships, it's very hard to let go of. Look at me, what I did in this relationship, it was very hard to let go. And the first time, I think it was really, my life wasn't stable, right? Like I had just moved, I had just had a promotion, and divorced, and my girls were going through a lot of hard things. This time, I have my own house. I've been at my job a year and almost 2 years, and things are good, right? Like I'm able to see myself outside of him right now. And it's sad that it took me to that place, but that's where it took me. And it's not going to take everyone there, right? For me, I needed that stability to see beyond him. And so I have done some really normal things and weird things to like ground myself and get out of this attachment. So I go to therapy, but for me, the things that have really worked may seem silly, but who cares? So I started getting some crystals that make you feel serenity and peace, the obsidian that's like power and like gets bad spirits and energy away, right? I put those in the moon. I like whatever that does, and then I bring them in, and I think to myself, break me away, break me free. I have a future, and I said these things to myself, and it gave me a venue to say it. I took 2 candles and like a twine, and I like did a cord cutting ritual, like let that cord burn. Sometimes I pull a tarot card and say like, what is my future going there? And they say like, yeah, you've been through a tough time, but now you're looking on the other end. I've started to make amends, almost like reaching out to friends that I lost over those years because I was so all consumed by him. I have a list. I get my finances in order. If you do those little things, it seems to start building a little more structure. And really, I think the biggest thing is it's just about me. Like I spent so much time on him. And, even now I have, don't do this, don't get kittens, but I have 3 cats and a dog. I have 2 girls, a house that I own and have to maintain, and a full-time hectic job. I have never had so much time. In even those days when I have all of that in the house, I have time almost that I don't know what to do with. That is the mental load. That is mitigating somebody's emotions because I don't have any even tiny bit of help from that person, right? That's crazy to me. That says a lot. So I'm doing well. I would say there are moments of him trying to exert control financially or threats about the girls, not paying. Those are the things, but that's what they hold on to, I think, to like have that control, right? But I do all these little woo things, like do what makes you feel good again. And that's just about you. And know that these things don't help all the time. But, some time is good enough, especially for me right now.
And if you had any other words of wisdom for everyone listening, what would they be?
No matter where you go, there you are. Right? Moving did not change a thing. And get back to yourself. Be your best friend, even if you never were. I think it's time.
Well, Christina, I really want to thank you for being here with us today. We're happy you're alive, first and foremost, with a person like that. Who knows what they're capable of when push comes to shove and they get desperate for wanting to maintain control. And thank you for being here and validating everyone's experience today. And the fact that you have more free time now when you're just you and not with someone else is quite amazing. And I think it says a lot, and it says so much to what everyone else is dealing with, how much time is spent worrying, thinking, all consuming, because your world has become their world and you're living in their world and you're trying to survive their world. And now it's just your world. And all of that energy and time thievery in all different ways is gone. And it's remarkable that you can have that taken away and you do have more time. And it's a big thing for people to hear and people to see, that you might think that you might not be able to do it alone, but here's a case where it's like, no, it provides me more time to do the things that need to be done in many ways, because there's this other person that's not hindering everything and taking everything. So just a really big thank you for being here with us today and sharing with everyone.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. You do such good work.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Cristina, with us today. And if you want to be a guest like Cristina was today, go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Click on the guest form button, fill it out, press the submit button. Also, we have a support group with Zoom meetings every Wednesday night, Thursday afternoons, and Saturday nights. And we have forum boards for you to post on to get the validation you need from survivors just like you. That is at narcissistapocalypse.com. And we also have a new newsletter at narcissistapocalypse.com. Get a free workbook in this newsletter for every new episode of our survivor stories, all at narcissistapocalypse.com. And that is it for today's survivor story, for today's episode. So for myself and Cristina, we hope you have a good night.